So it's been quite a bit of evolution then, from the way medical education has evolved to the way the board exams and the way taking board exams has evolved. Do you see any changes with this continued evolution in medical education, in board exams? I guess just really in the way people are going to be evaluated later on.
Yeah. See anything coming down the pike. Medical education is very resistant to change. It's a huge body of institutions. Each of them has lots and lots of faculty, and it's hard to change the status quo. This is not to say it never will change, but we're very comfortable with a step one and a step two exam and a series of clinical rotations where you get a grade like pass, fail, or honors. And things have been like that, since the 1990s, basically. And so I don't see anything really coming down the pike necessarily that's going to change it. I think the signaling system has helped apply for residency, because it was people were applying to 5,000 programs, and the programs didn't know if they were serious about coming there or not, and they only have so many interview spots, and they would waste them on somebody who was clearly never going to come. So, from what I understand, the signaling system, although it's an added stressor for applicants, it helps to let residency programs know you're serious about that particular program. But that's the only real, if when I think about what I experienced versus what you experienced, it hasn't changed that much. Students are still getting honors on their rotations. They're asking for letters of recommendation. They're trying to pass step one and get a good score in step two. All that's been the same for about 30 years. And at least in the near future, I don't see a big change coming.
Wow, okay. And so even with AI and the integration of AI, you still see a very traditional approach to medicine, teaching, and assessment as well?
I think so. I'm hearing rumblings that, residency programs are feeding applications into AI to give them a snapshot summary of the student. I don't know if that's good or bad. Obviously, if you have a faculty member who's going to thoughtfully read your whole application, you'd much rather have them read your whole application. But I do know there are faculty members who are rarely pressed for time and they skim through people's applications. And so in those cases, maybe the AI will be better because it will pick out the most important things from your whole application and make sure that the reviewer sees them. But that's the only big AI change I'm aware of anyway. I'm not 100% enmeshed in the world of applying to residency and those things. I'm really more in this sort of
Mhm.
video updating, what's on step, how do you get ready for it kind of world. But I don't see a lot of huge changes for AI coming right now, right away.
Oh, got it. I see. No, thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. And so, going back to boards and beyond, uh, again, with all of those evolutions, how do you see the future of boards and beyond evolving? Since you mentioned, it's with McGraw-Hill, there's a lot of development there. Do you see possibly, or even a different iteration of boards and beyond, now one possibly cardiology related?
Yeah, great question. So McGraw-Hill has done some fantastic things with Boards and Beyond. I'm really happy with what they've done with it. So first of all, they digitized first aid and made an online product called First Aid Forward. And it's linked to Boards and Beyond. So you can watch a video and click a button and see the page in first aid that goes with it. And vice versa. You can go through the online first aid and click a button and hop back to a video. So I think that's fantastic because I know students told me they would go through first aid as they watch my videos, and they liked that my videos paralleled first aid. So I love that it's integrated digitally online. They've also just linked up with Anki Hub, so now there's going to be this huge collection of Anki cards you can get access to for like $9 a month or something like that. Because I also know that students love to do Anki, and they love the pre-made cards that come from Anki Hub that have been, vetted by people and things like that. So that's a big thing. The next thing I think that's coming is all the videos are being updated. Actually, I'm narrating them, but it's much easier now because McGraw-Hill updates the slides and edits for me. I used to do everything myself. It took a long time. So they send me the slides, I narrate them. We've updated cardiology, endocrinology, pulmonary's finished, musculoskeletal's finished, neuro's coming next. So, by 6 months or a year from now, all the videos on the site will be updated. And that's really exciting too, because when I first made the videos, I would teach you something in cardiology and there'd be a tie-in with neurology, but I hadn't made the neurology videos yet, so I didn't know that. So it's really fun to update them because I see these things and I tell you guys about them in the videos, and I say, oh, like this cell type here is part of this cancer, but you know what? It's also important in whatever Hirschsprung's disease or something like that. And so I've had a really fun time updating the videos now that I've once gone through sort of all the different topics and I'm coming back to teach them to you. So I think the updated videos are coming down the pike. And then McGraw-Hill is going to launch its own QBank. The QBank market is like the biggest thing now. There's Amboss and UWorld. I think the future of QBanks is to tie it to AI, so you can have an AI tutor on the bot on the side and say, I don't understand why I got this question wrong, and the AI will go back and forth with you and help you understand where your gaps in your knowledge are. So I think that's going to come along for most of the QBanks in the next 10 years, and McGraw-Hill is looking into that as well.
Oh my goodness. I think it's so convenient. I think that was a very necessary, I would say, add-on, because I remember when I would go through the Board and Beyond videos, I would go through the video and then I would try to look for it, spend minutes, where is this topic? Where is it? There it is. And now it's just so seamlessly integrated where one can watch the video and then it just immediately pinpoints you to where you can find it in the first aid. I think that's just such an excellent transition. And I just think that's just an excellent, again, addition to the Boards and Beyond. What are other things that you would say would make Boards and Beyond stand out from other study sources?
I think when we finish what we're doing now, when Boards and Beyond has its own QBank, on par in terms of the number of questions with UWorld and Amboss, and they're linked to the videos. I mean, the nice thing about the Boards and Beyond questions, I mean, we do have questions now, but we're going to have even more, is that if you just watch the video, on hypothyroidism, you can then go and get like 10 questions on hypothyroidism. So you see the way it's going to come at you on the USMLE exam. And so the more we can build up the question bank, I think that for me would have been the perfect learning tool in med school. I would have paid any amount of money to have first aid alongside a video that explains first aid in plain English, alongside a handful of questions about the topic I just read in first aid to make sure I got it. And so if I had that, I think I would have been golden. And I think that's what we're going to try to deliver to you guys in the next few years. You have it now. I mean, there's a spreadsheet that went around matching all the UWorld questions of Boards and Beyond videos or something. So you guys are organically building this product yourselves. But I think McGraw-Hill sees that and is going to try to create it and offer it to you all at once. The other thing coming out of Pike, I think, is, and part of the reason I sold the company is, I really think the future is in institutional sales. I think hopefully this era of all of you guys having to spend money to buy your own resources or pirate them or whatever will come to a close, and med schools will just say, look, these resources are so helpful, we're going to provide it as part of the cost of tuition that you have access. And so, McGraw-Hill has salespeople in the Middle East, in India, in Europe, places I never would have done on my own running the company. And so the institutional sales have really gone up since they took over it. And I hope that's going to keep happening, because I'd love to see you guys start med school and not have to ask the upperclassmen what resources to get, but the school provides the ones that are most helpful to you and guides you in how to use them alongside your learning in medical school.
Wow. No, it's definitely going across the world, across generations soon. It's just very exciting. Do you ever think Boards and Beyond is going to become required or integrated into medical school curriculums?
Hope so. There's a few med schools who've done that. Schools have been resistant, and I sort of get this. They have faculty who've been teaching the topics in Boards and Beyond for years, and understandably, they don't want to give those up just because the students say, hey, I like these online videos better, or they're easier to use. So I think it may take some time, but I think when your generation of doctors is running the med schools, you're the deans and the admission officers, there'll be more openness to video-based learning, and more openness to buying these third-party resources for students. And then really the role of the med school, I think, the med school teaching will never be replaced by videos, but that type, like if you want to learn glycolysis, you should learn it from a video. But then if you want to learn how to take care of babies with, metabolic disorders, that's where you need a faculty member. So I'm hoping the med schools will refine their role to no longer teaching the foundations, the ABCs, but to really teaching students, the higher level things that can't be learned from a video.
Mhm. Yeah, no, definitely. It'll definitely allow more hands-on training, a lot more integration, and just really kind of allowing that seamless transition from medical school to residency, right?
I agree. Yeah. No, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And would you say, now that Boards and Beyond has been with another company now, has it opened more, have you had more time, or has it opened more opportunities to explore other entrepreneurial ventures, any other approaches that you've had, anything else that we can expect there?
Yeah, it's been great. So I have two things I will share with you guys that I've been working on. So the first one is my YouTube channel. So what I've been doing is, you may know for step one, there are these free 120 questions, these MBME questions. And from what I understand from talking to my students, everyone does them at some point. So I started to make these short 5-minute videos where I explain how to get the answer to those questions, and it's gotten really popular, and it sort of opened my mind to something I hadn't realized before. But if you answer a UWorld question and you get it wrong and you read the explanation, they're showing you why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong, but they're not really talking to you about how to approach the question. What information was most important, what was least important. And I found, especially when I tutor students who are struggling to pass step one, that's often where the gap is. It's not that they don't know what happens in, a prolactinoma. It's that they are focusing on the wrong information in the stem and they're getting distracted. And so in these videos, I try to say, look, when I see this question, these are the first things that jump out in my mind, this, and this. And some of the questions, you just have to know that answer B is the right answer. There's no way around it. Other questions, there's no way you could know answer B is correct, but you need to recognize that answers A, C, D, and E are all wrong, and only answer B makes sense. So I try to tell you these sort of, I don't know how to describe it, these approach things to questions in the videos. And so that's one thing I've been working on. I'm very excited about. It's a lot of fun for me. This is a nerdy thing, but I like to see the questions and try to put myself in the mind of the writer. And I'm like, what was this writer thinking when they wrote this question? And some of them are just bad questions, and I will tell you that in the video. Like, this is a poorly written question. It's confusing. There's always a few of these on your exam. Don't get depressed. Do the best you can and move on. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I work is I wrote a novel about life in medical school. It's a satire. It's called The Gunner. I'll share it with you here. But I always wanted to write a book. It was like a bucket list thing of mine. And after hearing all the stories from you guys of all the crazy things you encounter in school, I thought, oh, this will make for a great satirical, it's somewhat serious but somewhat comedy story. And so it's about a woman who's a first generation med student and goes to med school very naive, thinking that all that matters is helping patients, and quickly gets pulled into stress about how to buff her CV and match into the most competitive specialties and all these things.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So all bases are being covered now. How to study, how to study for the steps, how to approach questions now with free 120, and even what somebody could expect in medical school with a gunner, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, like, how to approach questions is always a hard thing for some students. Standardized tests, as you may know, have always been found to sort of favor wealthier children from wealthier families than non-wealthy families. Why is that? And I can see it now. My kids go to private school. They get all this special help from teachers. And, they're going to come into higher education with all these tricks in their mind of how to approach questions. But not everybody has that type of background. And so I wanted to even the playing field with these videos and say, look, I'm going to explain to you not just the right answers and the wrong answers, but how to think about this question, or at least the way I think about it. And hopefully that will help some people get a better grasp on how to look at these questions.
Dr.
Yeah,
Ryan,
no, I
so
think that's amazing.
yeah, so I got a quick question. So I know most of the people who are the IMGs, who are the medical graduates who ask this question, and this is a very common question. They ask, like, we are stuck at 220, we are stuck at 215. So they are going to take the assessment, and even after 2 months of more studying, they're still at the same level, like 215 or 220. So what do you think these people can do differently to just get an idea of the where the gap is? Because this is the most common question we get a lot, that we are stuck at 220 or 250.
Yeah, that's why I made these videos on the YouTube channel. I mean, usually that's about how you approach the questions. There's two reasons. It could be that you never really learned biochemistry well enough, and you need to go back to the Boards and Beyond videos and watch those videos because there's just things you never learned, and so you're getting questions wrong about that. So that's one possible reason. But if you feel confident that you've put in the time to build your foundation, and that most pages in first aid, when you open them up, the things on those pages you recognize. That's my definition sort of a good foundation. You won't even have it all memorized, but if you open up a page in first aid and you have no idea what that is on that page, you've got a problem. So if you've covered that, then it's really about doing more questions. It's about the way you're approaching questions. You've got to figure out some of these tricks. They're just such little tricks. I can't tell you how crazy it was. I was setting up to do a free 120 question. It was a 6-year-old girl with precocious puberty at 6 years old. And you could tell from the lab values that her FSH and LSH levels were high. So something's wrong with her pituitary gland. It's producing, the gonadotropins too early. And it said, which of the following is the cause? And I mean, the answer was abnormal neurons. And, I think they're talking about the hypothalamus because the hypothalamus is neurons. But I mean, that is an annoying question. Like, you can completely understand the pituitary sex gland axis and all the hormones, and you can get that question wrong. It's got nothing to do with medicine. It's got to do with vocabulary, really. Like when you're looking at an endocrine question, you're thinking any answer about neurons has to be the wrong answer because this is an endocrine question. But oh, right, the hypothalamus is a bunch of neurons. So these are the things I try to show you in the videos, and these are the things I tell people to focus on. It's often these little tricky things in the question. There was another one where you knew that posterior pituitary was making too much ADH, and it said, where's the problem? And the answer was supraoptic nucleus, because that's the part of the hypothalamus that connects to the posterior pituitary. I mean, these are little annoying details, but that can be the difference between like a 220 and a 240, is like 8 of those types of questions. So the only way to really overcome that hump is to, just spend more time doing questions and try to really understand the vocabulary behind the questions. What were the distractors? What were the red herrings? If you're getting a 220, in my opinion, you know enough medicine to go on and practice medicine. Like, that's good. Your foundation is solid. You're not going to kill anyone. You've studied. Good for you. But if you're trying to get that score up to 240, 250, because that's the only way to get into a program from where you're applying from, then you're going to have to keep drilling questions to get these other little tiny things that are tripping you up.
That's a fantabulous explanation. When I started my journey for exam, and somebody introduced me for the Kaplan videos and like a lot of other resources, but to me, like everything was like a mountain that I cannot conquer these. So someone introduced me the Boards and Beyond videos, like just like a word of mouth. So I was so happy because there were a total of 96 hours videos total. Everything was covered for step one, and it's all that's needed to get a good score in the exam. So I think I was pretty so happy that I'm being introduced with the Boards and Beyond videos. So that's kind of just my experience. I want to share it with you and for with everyone, that if you guys are looking for clear, concise concepts, just want to brush up your knowledge, I think about Boards and Beyond videos are one of the best resource somebody have ever introduced to me.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I always wondered when I was in med school why my teachers didn't teach from first aid, because first aid is full of important information. I'm a cardiologist, and all the diseases I treat are in there, all the drugs. And I always wondered why they didn't just teach right from that. And so when I got to become a faculty member, I built my lectures around first aid. And this is why I think the students liked them. These were the in-person lectures. And so then when I decided to start making videos, I kept with that sort of workflow of what's in first aid, what do they want you to know, let's explain this in plain English. That was my goal.
That's very good. And Dr. Ryan, I just also was having initially when you explained about your website thing about you got a quote of like $25,000 to build the initial website. I know we also had a similar experience when we started our organization, IMG Helping Hands. But it was too. I got a code like around $20,000, and it was too good for me to, or too much for me. Like I just an IMG who does not even have that much money to invest in any such thing. So I plan to just do the outsourcing, like by involving the people from Pakistan, India, so where we can make a website or build a website. And also, I got a quote of like around $1,500 to $2,000 for all the setup. It was pretty economical for me, but me for as an IMG, I didn't have like $1,500 to make a website at that time as well. And you can
Yeah.
understand it be like a resident salary, which we get after tax deductions. So what I did was just a unique experience to share here. I learned how to make a website. It took me like around 7 hours or around 7 to 10 hours to how to make a website from YouTube and from just like a resource, other resources. And it was I made the first website, just the portal. It was a very bad one, but it was just good enough to just get a kickstart. But once once our organization was just pulling off, we started getting 120 to 150 students every month, like new students every month from all over the world. We started hiring the IT team to just make it a little bit better and to just keep on. We are also on the same process of organizing. And I really appreciate how Boards and Beyond has pulled up and also just innovating new things. And these are going to be very beneficial for a future cohort. And then I really like the idea of the bot, which you mentioned that the bot can identify where the gap of the knowledge is, and also can help people rather than me going on Google or going on the resources. Oh, okay, what's the answer of this one? Rather than just when I'm solving the question, if there is an AI bot, I can ask questions from there right away and get my knowledge brushed up really, really quick. So I think that's a very good thing. Um, but one thing I would also want to learn from you, which would be like there is also a lot of, although we are doing a good work every month, we are getting more students, and then we are teaching. Or our programs are more related to research programs, like how to do research stuff. But how do you tackle the hate of the people like on the social media? I know a lot of people when we start saying, I know I we invest a lot of energy, like the whole team, like we are just so enthusiastic. We introduce something on the social media, and the next time we on the social media we see a comment that, oh, you're a scam, oh, these are not worth it. So that's something which I am also in the process of learning how to make myself emotionally more stable to handle all these comments. So I just
Yeah.
want to see if you have any such experiences.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't have an easy answer. The only thing I can tell you that I have to remind myself of all the time is that the people that comment on social media are a tiny sliver of all the people on social media who view your stuff. So, I've had posts on Twitter or other things the company has done that, somebody gets really upset about and starts ranting out. And then I've run into my students and I said, boy, why does everyone hate this thing I'm doing? And they go, what are you talking about? We love it. And I say, but you're not posting online. Everyone posting online says they hate it. And they're like, oh, Dr. Ryan, don't listen to those crazy trolls. They have no idea what they're talking about. So, for better or worse, in our modern world, anytime you do anything public facing, you launch a product, you make a statement on social media, you make a video, there are going to be these people who come out of the woodwork to criticize it. And, you just have to try and think, is what I'm doing or what I'm saying, do I really believe it? And if you really believe it and people are coming after you for it, then that's just what happens, right? And this has been going on forever since George Washington got crap from the British for trying to start a new country. Like there's always someone out there coming after you. So I'm not perfect at it. It still upsets me, especially if I try to do something I think is positive. I try to give a piece of advice and then people come after me and say, this is terrible advice, you're harming people. And I'm like, oh, but I was trying to help. So I don't have an easy answer, but except to remind yourself that, if what you're doing with IMG Helping Hands is making a difference for people, then just try to focus on that. There's always going to be someone who comes out and says you're scamming. The other thing that a lot of people don't appreciate, frankly, is what we were just talking about, is how much money some of these endeavors cost. The current Boards and Beyond website, which was rebuilt before I sold the company, was $250,000 to build. And the initial one was $25,000, but then I had to invest money all the time. So people don't always get that, and they get upset that you're charging money, and they think you're trying to squeeze people. But the reality is, I Boards and Beyond eventually became profitable, but for years it was not profitable, and I was really spending out of my own pocket to keep it going because I believed in it and I wanted to see it succeed. So people don't get that. So they will often come after you, if you're starting a business or selling a product, that mad at you for, trying to make money, but they don't understand how much work, time, and money it costs to get these things off the ground.
Yes. That's absolutely true. I really appreciate the answer. I think it solves a lot of
I mean,
problems.
before I had a company, I might have gotten mad too at someone who wanted $100 for a collection of videos. I would say, "Oh, who's this jerk?" But now that I've had run my own company, I say, "Wait a second, like, that person probably spent a lot of money and definitely spent a lot of time to get that website going, and they're not charging that much money, and it's probably worth it." And I would have a different viewpoint now that I've been through what I've been through.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
Wow. No, well, thank you so much for being very vulnerable with us, Dr. Ryan. Thank you so much for all of the insight, everything you shared with us. I really do appreciate your time and everybody's attendance and listening. I'll be now passing over the virtual mic to Dr. Zainab Dean. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Ryan.
If you don't
Yes,
mind,
thank
I'll
you
make
so
a
much.
quick comment. Probably
Oh,
the
of
most
course.
common question I get from IMGs is a very specific question about their case. I have this, I have that. Will I match in this specialty? Won't I match? And I wish I could answer these questions for you guys. I don't have great answers because it is so specific to your individual case. The best thing I can tell you is if you're an IMG and you want to get into the US, you've got to find someone who did it before you from the same place you came from. So find someone from your country, from your med school, with your type of background who got into the US and find out what they did. Because the advice is going to be different for everybody. And honestly, one of the strongest things you have going for yourself is not your board scores or your research publications. It's who's gone before you on the same path you're coming down now. So if you're from a certain med school in the Philippines, I can tell you the UConn internal medicine residency, there's one that they take 3 or 4 people from every year. All right. So if you're from that med school, UConn is a great option for you. If you're from another school that UConn has never taken someone from ever before, that may not be a good option, but some other program may be a good option. So the key thing is to find people who've gone before you from whatever background you're coming from, whatever country you're coming from, whatever med school, and try to find out what they did and what worked. Those people are really going to be your greatest asset. It's just, I wish I could answer for all of you, but it's so specific. It's different for this med school and this country, and whether you're going into anesthesia or psych or family medicine, there's so many variables.
Oh wow, no, thank you so much once again, Dr. Ryan. And any final advice for students that you would like to give?
Yeah, I mean, final advice. Lower the stakes for yourself is probably the most common piece of advice I give. If you feel like my life is over if I don't get a 250 on step 2, but if I get a 260, I'm going to cruise the high life forever. It's too stressful. That you can't live in a world like that. You've got to lower the stakes. Know that you're going to be okay no matter what happens. I've never met anyone who's homeless on the streets and said everything was going great till I got a 230 on step 2, and then it was downhill from there. Like, people bounce back from bad scores, from not matching, from all these things. So keep it in perspective as much as you can, not just so you stay happy, but it'll just make your studying easier. If you have that intense pressure that I'm a failure if I don't get a certain match or a certain score, that's a really hard way to live.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. Thank you so much for your words on persistence, on just really showing us a good pathway on structuring your study plan with Boards and Beyond and all of its integrations, and on the importance of researching the programs, past cohorts, and how to integrate them into your residency applications. Thank you so much, Dr. Ryan.
My pleasure.
Yes, I really appreciate Dr. Ryan for your presence in our webinar. And we would also like to set up something for the people we are having. Like every month, we are getting like 120 to 150 people from more than like 70 to 80 countries who are transitioning to American residency programs. So I was just really wondering if there is something which we can set up, because I'm really a big fan of Pose and Beyond, and uh, so was just thinking if we can set something up, because I really the main goal is to provide the tool to the people like outside of the US, outside of the USA, who can start, because there are a lot of difficulties which I have faced when I started my journey, because I was not aware of all the resources. And I just want to make it easy for all the people from all over the world, so they can have something like a really good quick start to get into the residency program. Because a lot of people, they go into the IM residency because the reason is because their seniors tell them that you should go to IM, because it's everybody who is going to IM is this is the only possibility here in the USA for IMGs. But I would like to deny this fact that you can go into any specialty, even if you are an IMG. But the main goal initially is to just plan things ahead of time. So I was also thinking might be if a person like you mentioned got a low score 230s, who will not be a good candidate for going into dermatology. But if that person is having a score like above 250s to 60s, then he would have a more confidence to go into the competitive like specialities. So I want to make it easy or feasible for everybody to access those resources, like such as Boards, the Ports and Beyond. That will be very much impactful.
Yeah.
So just I want to have a quick discussion about you. How do you think we can provide the tools to all these people? So if you I think yeah, Erica did share a few of the resources like your website in the chat box, but we can all also talk about later on about how we can set up things where we can help more people
Best
and
thing, the
regarding
best thing you the best thing I can think of that you could do is to create a library of success stories for people to look at and model themselves after. And obviously they would be different for students from different countries. They would be different from students based on how far out of training they are. They would be different for students based on board scores. But I've not been able to find, maybe it exists and I just don't know it, but I've not been able to find a central place where I could tell IMGs like, go there, look up your med school, find out what people have matched into in the last 5 years, find out where they are now, see if you can reach out to any of them for advice or guidance or anything like that. So I think some students go to medical schools where that's readily available at the school, but not all students do. To me, that would be very helpful because I do get a lot of these highly specific questions. I'm interested in physiatry. I'm 2 years out. I went to school initially in Pakistan and then I switched to a school here and I have 1 year observership here. And I don't know how to advise someone like that because their background is so different from what I encounter in US medical students. And so any type of central repository where you could offer that kind of information, I feel like would be valuable, at least based on the questions you guys have posed to me.
all right, thank you so much, Dr. Ryan, and really appreciate your presence. So I'm just gonna ask let our audience if you guys have any specific questions related to like Boards and Beyond, or any question from Dr. Ryan. So we will be happy to answer the questions before we end our session.
See, someone has a question about, do I know of research jobs that take IMGs without USMLE? And I don't have an answer to this. I wish I did, but I don't. I don't know if I get asked for observerships. My own hospital where I used to work, UConn, doesn't allow outside observerships. I don't know which schools do, but this would be a great thing to have on your Helping Hands website. Here's 100 people who found observerships and how they did it. That someone else could
Yeah,
model
that's
their
true.
own path afterwards. That would be great.
Yeah, that's I think that's a wonderful advice. So we're gonna look into that and then come up with the success stories, like how people have achieved all this. But we're also planning to invite someone who can be helpful in these type of questions for the IMGs next in the next week. But yeah, there was one more question in the chat box for IMG. What is the best to have in order to match, especially in internal medicine and cardiology?
Yeah. I mean, the best thing is to be a strong student from an institution that the residency has taken students from before. So if you are from a school again, I'll use the Philippines example, where many residents in the past have applied to UConn, matched, and done well. Some have been chief resident. and you apply and your letters say you're among our top students, that's going to be gold. I mean, that is going to, your board score will matter, of course. They don't want to see a terrible board score. Some research will help, yes. But just the fact that you're coming from a program that they know, you're from a med school that they know they can trust, that they know delivers trainees that are good quality that become chief residents. I mean, this is going to be a huge, huge thing. And that's why your individual path really makes it a huge difference. Matching to some programs could be easy from certain places and extremely difficult from other places based on the track record of the previous few years. I know this is even true for USMD students. So at the University of Connecticut, I went to a program in Boston called Beth Israel Deaconess along with another woman in my class, but there hadn't been anyone who went to that program for some time before us. So we were like the first to break through. But subsequent years, they've taken 3 and 4 students every year, and they continue to do now. So if you want to apply there from UConn, your odds are much better because of everything that's happened over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's true. So yeah, Dr. Ryan, we got another question which is what I have 2 attempts in step 1 in 2022 in India. Now I live in Canada and want to give step 1 again. So shall I continue the journey?
That is such a hard question to answer, nothing's impossible. I've seen people who failed step 1 multiple times and still get in, especially if you get in through sort of what I call a back door. Like if you become a research assistant at a program and they really get to know you, people will then match even with scores that normally would preclude you from matching, but it's because they know you individually. So nothing's impossible. But if you failed step 1 twice, you're really going to have to get a connection to get into a program. It's going to be hard to just throw your hat in with 1,000 other applicants and try to get in.
Yeah, I think I would also say the same thing. I have seen because I just want to share an example. That one of my colleagues, she was doing observership with me, and I was just as such. I was amazed with the consistency. She was a graduate from 1996, and she matched in 2022. So such an old grad, she had multiple attempts, but still she was able to match. So if you are consistent, I think you will be able to achieve this stuff.
Right. You often need to do the backdoor thing when you have something, some deficit that stands out on your application, like a failure. It really helps if, you work in someone's research lab for 2 years and you're fantastic and they really like you. Then they'll recommend you and you'll get in despite whatever's on your application.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. I think we are going to end up this session with this last question. Uh, the last question here is how much connections influence your matching into different programs?
I mean, they have plenty of people match with no connections every year. So if you have no connections, you are not doomed. But there's no question it helps. My medical school dean used to say the best letter of recommendation you can get is from somebody who's friends with the program director at your first choice, and that program director owes them a favor. So it's very hard to do that, right? But that's the ideal sort of, recommendation is to have a connection like that of someone who knows the program director and all that. So if you can get that, it's definitely great. But without it, that doesn't mean it's impossible. But again, it's so specific. What school are you from? What country are you from? What's your background? The best thing you can do is find someone similar to yourself who's in the US in residency or in attending and say, okay, what did they do to get here? And how do I mirror what they did so I can follow in their path?
Yeah, that's an absolutely like wonderful answer. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. There are a lot of more questions, but we are gonna just due to the time constraints, we are gonna post the answers later on our social media for all the other questions which we were not able to answer. And we a lot of people are also asking about the recording of this session. Yes, we are also gonna post this recording in the Teams group and on the social media, so you show anyone who was not able to attend the session, so they can have the answers if they have any question. So thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. I'm glad that we had such a wonderful discussion about boards and beyond, how this is going to be impactful, how this is already impacting lives, and how it's going to be impactful in the future as well. And thank you, Erica, for such a wonderful session you hosted, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking with all of you guys. I owe all my success to medical students. You know, if you hadn't watched my videos, I wouldn't be here right now. So I appreciate all of you, and I hope everything works out for the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
once again for your time, Dr. Ryan.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Goodbye.
Have a good one. All right. That is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much, everybody who has attended. Thank you to everybody who listened. Thank you so much once again for Dr. Ryan, Dr. Zane, and again, all of the attendees. We look forward to seeing you on the next one, and we'll keep you updated. Don't forget to stay connected. We'll see you.